If you work in the steps of recovery, there are certain ways to make them happen for you. Certain ways that you can do, techniques to make it easier to actually work on using these steps. And much of the conventional literature doesn't give you much about it. What I'm going to tell you is based on 30 years' experience. And we're going to start with the first step because this is the one, what I call the must have step. Preceded by the zero step is, as they jokingly say, the zero step, this shit has got to stop. So we get to step one, to admit that we are powerless over the problem. And the part about it making our lives unmanageable. Well, that's our evidence that we're powerless over it. We can't manage this thing. So to get not only the admission but the acceptance of the reality, that's where we want to be. We want to deal in facts. We have to make them more tangible to us. Why do we do this? Well, one of the things that I use as an example of acceptance as opposed to denial or ignoring facts is an incident that happened on December 7th, 1941 at Pearl Harbor at about between 7:30 and 7:30 and 7:45 in the morning. There was an experimental radar station there, and the radar station had picked up something out there. Now, the men at the station called in to their commanders and said, "There's something out there." The commanders could have sent up a couple airplanes to investigate. They could have paid attention. Instead, they said, it's either a flock of birds or there's some B-17s coming in from the mainland. Just ignore it, shut down, go have breakfast. And the men shut down and went to have breakfast, and the Japanese attacked. Ignoring it, denying it, saying it isn't there, thinking it isn't there, doesn't change the fact that it's there. In their case, the Japanese were there ready to bomb Pearl Harbor. Do you catch the analogy how it is to the problem? You can ignore the problem, you can deny it, but it's still there. And the only way you can get a handle on it is to admit and accept that it's there, to see it for what it is. Now, I'm a great believer in pen and paper exercises. I've been using these for years for various things, not just recovery, because it's a bit of psychology, it's a bit of human nature. There used to be a saying, your eyes are as quick as your mind. That has its validity, but the other thing is that when you write something down, you give it a degree of tangibility, and your mind gives it a place and location. So it's easier for your mind to work. You name it, you're looking at it, it's there. You can't say, well, it's not there. Here, you've written it down. You've got something tangible. That's the start. So, in coming to admit you have the problem, look at the things that are unmanageable. Look at the symptoms of the problem and write them down. Is your problem making you so unmanageable that the cops got to come to your house 2 times a week to tell you to knock it off? Is your illness making you so unmanageable you have visits to the emergency room? Guess what? Most people don't have visits to the emergency room unless they've got a chronic illness. And if you don't have a chronic illness, what are you doing? Write it down. That's something. Do you get so out of control they have to put you in a psychiatric lockup ward? Most people don't end up in a psychiatric lockup ward. And even those who have chronic mental illnesses in this day and age usually don't end up there. Write it down. Are you so out of control that you're losing your job? Maybe have lost a string of jobs over nonsense? Write it down. Are you in danger of losing your spouse or your family? Most people don't have their children taken away from them, for instance. Write it down. All these things, disputes with the neighbors, no matter what it is, you write it down and look at it. This is what your problem is bringing to you. And then work to get to the core problem. This is what the problem is. Write it down. Say it to yourself. Say it out loud. Look at it. This is the problem. And that's a real shortcut to helping you accepting it. because it's a little harder to go back and say, well, no, maybe I was wrong. You've written it down. You looked at trouble that it's caused you. And if you really want, get someone you can trust, someone who can keep his mouth shut and say, hey, I think I have this problem. Now the cat's out of the bag. You can't go back and say, oh, I really don't have it. Especially if the person you confide in says, yes, we've known this for a while. You've finally woken up. It's about time you figured it out. You see, this is the way to really get to accepting and admitting the problem. Writing it down, looking at it, saying it, seeing it as a tangible thing. Maybe you have other evidence you can look at while you're sitting there. Maybe there's the papers from the court. Maybe there's the hospital bills. Maybe there's the police reports or all the other nonsense. Maybe there's the depleted bank account and all the money you've had to pay to the bookie and paying the vig. Doesn't matter. What is your problem? Alcohol, other drugs, gambling, sex, overeating, could be any number of things. But the evidence is right there. So now, in step one, you're using a rational approach. Evidence. Evidence in your life that there is a problem. Remember, this evidence does not have to stand up to the standards of other people. It only has to stand up to your standards. You don't have to sit and submit proof like some scientific report or like a prosecuting attorney. It just has to be enough for you to recognize, here it is. And now you started step one. Now you know there's a problem. To work step two is even easier. Came to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to, well, they use the word sanity, sensibility, reason, order. Or if you want to look at it from the other side, can stop the nonsense. This shit has got to stop. Well, then we come to believe that there is some power, something that has an ability that we don't, to help us restore reason back into our lives. Now, a lot of people in the old days would go to the God thing and say, okay, God will do this, because the original steps were couched in that Judeo-Christian, almost fundamentalist language. But we're a little more rational here. We're heathens, Odin's people. We call them as we see them. The old northern mindset. And that power can be anything that helps you. And I like to tell a story. The fella that the family used as a plumber when I lived up north, his assistant was a kid who was new in recovery. And we had a little problem at the house. I had a little problem at the house. So this was the guy I always called. And he sent the assistant to fix it. And this kid had been having trouble with a power greater than himself sort of thing. So we're talking while he's fixing the sink. And I says, well, right now you're a power greater than me. He says, what? I says, look at it this way. I don't know how to fix that sink. I can fix the roof, carpentry, nails, wood, roofs. I can do that. But pouring concrete or doing plumbing, I'm about as useless as tits on a bull. You can do it. I can't. When it comes to the sink, you're a power greater than me. Do you understand? And it was like a light bulb went off, But that's why you call in help. If you can't fix the electricity in your house, the electrician comes. He's a power greater than you when it comes to electricity. He might not be able to help you with your spirituality. But with electricity, there he is. Well, when it comes to recovery, you're going to come to believe there's a power greater than you. It's really easier than you think. Because if other people have had your problem and they have overcome that problem, either eliminated it entirely or arrested it to the point that they can have a normal life, not being plagued by that problem, well, they're human beings. If they could do it, why can't you? So that tells you that whatever worked for them, that is a higher power in this sense, and that same higher power can work for you. Maybe it's a program of recovery. Maybe it's a system to help you stay clean. this doesn't mean we exclude the possibility, the probability, the desire to also think of a higher power in terms of a God or other supreme, shouldn't say supreme, but superior spiritual being. Most of us have a belief in deities of some sort that we can call on to help us with this. And certainly those of us who are hardcore heathens do believe that gods are in most ways powers greater than ourselves. So you can call on them. But also take the more practical side where, along with calling on the gods, to see that other people have had the problem, there's something that worked for them, that something could work for you. It's really simple. Talk to people. You could even go to a meeting and ask people what worked for them. I remember a friend of mine had gone to his first recovery meeting. It was an AA meeting, and this guy was the bottom of the barrel. He'd had it. He really hit the skids. And he was at a meeting, what they call a speaker meeting, where 2 or 3 people get up and share their stories of where they were and how they put their lives back together. And this is a really powerful thing in itself, especially for new people, because they can hear people who've had their problem and that there is something that works for them. And he heard, and instead of just, comparing stories, he listened, what they call identify. And his thinking was, no one can fool me about the booze because I've been there. And I know these people have been there because they couldn't talk about it that way if they haven't. But they got jobs, they got families. Look at these people, they're clean and neat. They're living a decent life. And they're saying they were as bad as me, but there's a way to get there. So his belief was seeing healthy, happy people who had been through what he had been through, but now they're not in that misery anymore. You see, that's a real key to a higher power, to understanding what can help you. And now the third step, when you find that power, and a lot of people get jammed up on this because of the religious language, turned our will and our lives over the care of God. Well, God can also be good orderly direction. And good orderly direction is the program, the process by which you get better. You couldn't do it of yourself. You were powerless. But here is something that can do it for you, that can help you to do it. Here is the power greater than yourself. So what are you going to do? Stop doing the nonsense you've been doing and your own half-ass remedies that don't work, and start following something that does. And if it's a toss-up between doing what you want or what this program suggests, you follow the suggestion. You put your wants, your desires in your back pocket, and you follow directions. You do what you're being told will arrest your problem, will control it, will solve your problem, however you want to look at it. It's the remedy. And you apply it assiduously. Not saying, I'll do some of this, but I don't like this. No. You got to follow it wholeheartedly. And the easiest way to do this is have a good idea of what's necessary and resolve, make a commitment. And what I like that some of the recovery groups do is they'll say 90 meetings in 90 days. It's a 3-month commitment, and they said it isn't long. Look how long your problem has been dogging you for years. 90 days isn't much. But the key here is commitment. And the best way to commitment, just do it. Just know that this can remedy your problem. So instead of sitting home watching your favorite TV show, be out there, contribute to your recovery. Follow directions. Because if you follow directions, if they've worked so well for other people, why won't it work for you? Of course, if you don't follow directions or you do only half the directions, you're going to get half-assed results. So, again, identify the problem, accept and admit it's there, find something that can save you from the problem, and then follow it. It's that simple. Working the steps is simple. I remember I was at a meeting one time, and they had a woman who had known the founders of one of the recovery groups. And she was one of these southern, born again Christian types, and okay, I do like to make fun of the South sometime. A lot of people know that. But this woman at the end of the meeting had heard I was pagan, and she come over and takes my hand. Would you let me take you through the step with Jesus? I says, no. I says, I'm an Odinist. What do you want? But this nonsense. This isn't a step you're on your knees, oh God, oh great spirit, oh spirit of the moon, oh you're being mooned. Follow directions and do it. Get off your ass and do it. Don't just say it, do it. Commitment. There's one of the recovery groups have a saying, half measures availed us nothing. Do you want a half step on the rest of your life? Of course not. So do it. So once again, admit the problem, make it tangible. Find a solution, implement the solution, and invest yourself 100%. Make a commitment to applying that solution. And you're working the first 3 steps. Simple. It's not always easy. It takes some resolve, but you can give yourself that resolve. You always hear the saying, you've got to want it bad enough. And if you keep looking at the first step and the hell that was your life and you want to get away from that, that can make you want it quite enough. Good luck. Keep working. This is Uncle Thor. Have a good one.